Dengan mobile tunai, gak perlu ribet.
Mulai melihat potensi bisnis baru.
Bisa dong, transfer luar negeri cukup dari sini.
Yuk, buka tabungan BNI,
Cukup selfie.
dan aktifkan BNI Mobile Banking.
Mulai bisa apa aja sekarang.
Gak pakai nanti. Dengan digital bisa membangun negeri. Saling terhubung hingga ke pelosok negeri. Indonesia yang lebih
Kapan kita harus mulai?
Mari ditanyakan jam masih bau.
Tunggu hari baik
1 Januari 2112.
kali.
Berani mulai investasi sekarang.
Invest saham atau reksadana
Di satu aplikasi ajaib.
gampang buat yang baru berani mulai.
Aman lagi. Bisa meroket kapan aja. Yuk, saatnya berani mulai investasi saham.
Dan reksadana.
Ajaib, berani maju.
ajaib.
Ini udah selesai. Nenek nggak sengaja.
Hai Ibu, saatnya nih wujudkan rumah impian Anya. Lihat deh, ada program Wish for Home dari Sinar Maslen. Ini nih promo-promo Wish for Home periode terakhir. Mulai dari kafling, rumah, sampai apartemen. Yuk wujudkan rumah impian Anya. Wish for Home.
Mungkinkah ku bayar belanja tanpa sentuhan? Mungkin dong, hanya HP yang kau sentuh. Bayar belanja tinggal scan QR aja. BCA Mobile membuat semua jadi mudah.
Hello, and welcome to our corporate video. Companies around the world have been through several challenges. Some of them prevail and manage to conduct world-class business activities, while the rest are currently struggling with their day-to-day operations. We believe those could be enhanced through a solid system, a system so well-made and efficient to the level where the ordinary companies will grab an opportunity to implement world-class productivity system.
Through a system, we proudly name Run System, Enterprise Resource Planning.
It's not only ERP, it's run system.
Selamat datang di dunia antar aja. Perkenalkan, saya Satria yang akan menjaga barang kamu dengan sepenuh hati dan mengantarkan ke tempat tujuan tanpa hambatan. Mohon diperiksa kembali alamat pengiriman kamu. Apabila sering mengirimkan ke alamat yang sama, bisa disimpan dan kami akan mengingatnya. Dan memberi kabar tentang keberadaan barang kamu setiap saat. Ini semua dilakukan karena kami ingin memberikan kebahagiaan untuk kamu. Jadi mulai sekarang, untuk pengiriman apapun, tinggal diantar aja. Pasti bawa happy.
Kombinasi pembelajaran berkualitas yang aman juga nyaman bikin orang tua makin tenang.
Realisasi pendapatan asli daerah terus meningkat sebelum pandemi sehingga meningkatkan kemandirian daerah, di mana 50,65% penduduk yang didominasi generasi milenial dan Gen Z adalah potensi yang sangat penting dioptimalkan untuk menyambut era Society 5.0. Pemerintah Kota Malang tak henti-hentinya terus menata dan mempercantik wajah bumi Arema. Salah satunya penataan kayu tangan sebagai ibu kota heritage Malang Raya.
Here we are, a place for you to learn, find solutions, and develop knowledge and skills in business and management. We provide you with the methodology of case study prevalent in the academic and business world. So if you want to be fast, sharp, and relevant in business management, believe in yourself, believe in us, because now is your time.
Dengan inisiatif transisi energi, Pertamina menyediakan energi bersih ramah lingkungan untuk melindungi hijaunya bumi. Hangatnya sinar matahari, melimpahnya panas bumi, memenuhi kebutuhan energi dengan menekan emisi. Ayo bergerak bersama menjaga lestarinya alam demi masa depan bumi kita. Pertamina, energizing sustainable future, energizing you.
Di masa COVID-19 ini mengharuskan kita belajar daring dari rumah. Sehingga lumayan juga loh waktu yang terbuang begitu saja. Saya pikir, kenapa ya kita tuh nggak buat sesuatu gitu yang menghasilkan, kayak buat apa gitu. Nah, kebetulan saya sama Anissa ini kita sahabatan, jadi kita iseng-iseng lah cari ide. Pada akhirnya kita memutuskan untuk jualan online. Setelah kita cari-cari ide, puter otak, akhirnya ketemu. Kayaknya produk ini boleh juga nih kalau kita jual. Nama produknya itu Dukin Nazazi, alias dak kebab enak, lezat, dan bergizi. Seperti yang kita ketahui, biasanya kebab paling isinya daging ayam, daging sapi, atau kambing. Nah, setelah kita dapat ide, kayaknya boleh juga nih kita pakai daging bebek. Awalnya sih kita mulai dari sistem PO, jual ke teman, keluarga, tetangga, dan ya lumayan lah, sampai sekarang ini lumayan banyak pesanannya. Semoga usaha ini terus berkembang dan semakin lebih besar, walaupun kita bekerja sambil berkuliah. So, berawal dari passion, memulai hal yang kecil, dan untuk jadi lebih besar.
Cuma rebahan tapi bisa bikin perubahan. Waktunya mulai bisa apa aja dari satu aplikasi. Mulai adaptasi cara bayar baru.
Bisa kan pakai Kris, jadi mudah.
Mulai eksplorasi cara tarik tunai baru.
Ya bisa lah. Dengan mobile tunai, gak perlu ribet.
Mulai melihat potensi bisnis baru.
Bisa dong, transfer luar negeri cukup dari sini.
Yuk buka tabungan BNI, cukup selfie. Dan aktifkan BNI Mobile Banking.
Mulai bisa apa aja sekarang.
Gak pakai nanti.
Kapan kita harus mulai?
Mari tanyakan jam Mas Iqbal.
Tunggu hari baik.
1 Januari 2112.
Kali.
Berani mulai investasi sekarang.
Invest saham atau reksadana
Di satu aplikasi ajaib.
gampang buat yang baru berani mulai.
Aman lagi. Bisa meroket kapan aja. Yuk, saatnya berani mulai investasi saham.
Dan reksadana.
Ajaib, berani maju.
Cuma rebahan tapi bisa bikin perubahan. Waktunya mulai bisa apa aja dari satu aplikasi. Mulai adaptasi cara bayar baru.
Bisa kan pakai Kris, jadi mudah.
Mulai eksplorasi cara tarik tunai baru.
Bisa lah.
Dengan mobile tunai, gak perlu ribet.
Mulai melihat potensi bisnis baru.
Bisa dong, transfer luar negeri cukup dari sini.
Yuk buka tabungan BNI, cukup selfie. Dan aktifkan BNI Mobile Banking. Mulai bisa apa aja sekarang.
Gak pakai nanti.
Ya udah selesai nih. Nenek gak sengaja.
Hai Ibu, saatnya nih wujudkan rumah impian Anya. Lihat deh, ada program Wish for Home dari Sinar Maslen. Ini nih promo-promo Wish for Home periode terakhir. Mulai dari kafling, rumah, sampai apartemen. Yuk wujudkan rumah impian Anya.
Wish for home.
Kini tiba saatnya kita untuk belajar tatap muka terbatas, yang tentunya atas seizin orang tua. Dan proses pembelajaran yang dibagi menjadi 2, terbatas di kelas dan pembelajaran jarak jauh. Yuk, jangan lupa untuk selalu menjaga protokol kesehatan dengan menggunakan masker, mengecek suhu badan, dan mencuci tangan sebelum masuk kelas. Kombinasi pembelajaran berkualitas yang aman juga nyaman, bikin orang tua makin tenang.
Selamat siang, selamat berjumpa kembali di hari terakhir Virtual Conference Indonesia Economic Outlook 2022 hari ini, Kamis 25 November 2022. Sebelum kita akan memulai ke sesi berikutnya, ini sebenarnya baru sesi pertama dari hari keempat hari ini. Kita akan mengundi dulu door prize yang menarik. Tentu saja setiap hari ada door prize yang menarik untuk Anda para peserta. Kita akan bagikan hari ini kembali e-wallet senilai Rp500.000 untuk 3 orang pemenang. Baik, langsung saja kita akan mulai mengundi. Yang tadi sudah men-scan QR code, begitu kita akan mengundi. Baik, langsung 1, 2, 3. Start. Ya, stop. Siapa yang beruntung untuk siang hari ini? Atas nama Riko, selamat Anda memenangkan e-wallet senilai Rp500.000. Selanjutnya untuk pemenang kedua, langsung saja start. Stop. Atas nama Ines, selamat Ines, Rp500.000 berupa e-wallet untuk Anda. Dan ini dia pemenang terakhir untuk Rp500.000 berupa e-wallet. Langsung saja kita undi, mulai. Ya, start teman-teman. Stop. Siapa dia? Erik Setiadi. Selamat kepada Erik Setiadi. Baik, ada Riko, Ines, dan juga Erik Setiadi yang sudah memenangkan e-wallet senilai Rp500.000. Baik, saya ingatkan bagi ketiga pemenang yang mendapatkan door prize tadi, harap nanti di akhir acara bisa menghubungi kami melalui WhatsApp di nomor 0838 70 72 6000. Sekali lagi ke WhatsApp 0838 70 72 6000. Jangan lupa di sesi nanti berikutnya kami juga akan memberikan hadiah kejutan dengan cara kembali melakukan scan barcode atau QR code yang akan muncul di layar monitor Anda saat sesi berikutnya berlangsung. Ada hadiah menarik untuk Anda. Baik, saya Cakri Miller undur diri terlebih dahulu. Nanti kita akan bertemu lagi di sesi pertama dari hari terakhir kita hari ini di Virtual Conference Indonesia Economic Outlook 2022.
Cuma rebahan tapi bisa bikin perubahan. Waktunya mulai bisa apa aja dari satu aplikasi. Mulai adaptasi cara bayar baru.
Bisa kan pakai Kris, jadi mudah.
Mulai eksplorasi cara tarik tunai baru.
Bisa lah. Dengan mobile tunai, gak perlu ribet.
Mulai melihat potensi bisnis baru.
Bisa dong, transfer luar negeri cukup dari sini.
Yuk buka tabungan BNI, cukup selfie. Dan aktifkan BNI Mobile Banking. Mulai bisa apa aja sekarang.
Gak pakai nanti.
Dengan digital bisa membangun negeri, saling terhubung hingga ke pelosok negeri. Indonesia yang lebih Kapan kita harus mulai? Mari tanyakan Mas Iqbal.
Tunggu hari baik.
1 Januari 2112.
Kali.
Berani mulai investasi sekarang.
Invest saham atau reksadana
Di satu aplikasi ajaib.
gampang buat yang baru berani mulai.
Aman lagi. Bisa meroket kapan aja. Yuk, saatnya berani mulai investasi saham.
Dan reksadana.
Ajaib, berani maju.
Cari. Ya selesai. Nenek nggak sengaja.
Hai Ibu, saatnya nih wujudkan rumah impian Anya. Lihat deh, ada program Wish for Home dari Sinar Maslen. Ini nih promo-promo Wish for Home periode terakhir. Mulai dari kafling, rumah, sampai apartemen. Yuk wujudkan rumah impian Anya.
Wish for home.
Mungkinkah ku bayar belanja tanpa sentuhan?
Mungkin dong, hanya HP yang kau sentuh. Bayar belanja tinggal scan QR aja. BCA Mobile membuat semua jadi mudah.
Hello, and welcome to our corporate video. Companies around the world have been through several challenges. Some of them prevail and manage to conduct world-class business activities, while the rest are currently struggling with their day-to-day operations. We believe those could be enhanced through a solid system, a system so well-made and efficient to the level where the ordinary companies will grab an opportunity to implement world-class productivity system.
Through a system, we proudly name Run System, Enterprise Resource Planning.
It's not only ERP, it's Run System.
Selamat datang di dunia antar aja. Perkenalkan, saya Satria, yang akan menjaga barang kamu dengan sepenuh hati dan mengantarkan ke tempat tujuan tanpa hambatan. Mohon diperiksa kembali alamat pengiriman kamu. Apabila sering mengirimkan ke alamat yang sama, bisa disimpan dan kami akan mengingatnya. Dan memberi kabar tentang keberadaan barang kamu setiap saat. Ini semua dilakukan karena kami ingin memberikan kebahagiaan untuk kamu. Jadi mulai sekarang, untuk pengiriman apapun, tinggal diantar aja. Pasti bawa happy.
Kombinasi pembelajaran berkualitas yang aman juga nyaman bikin orang tua makin tenang.
Realisasi pendapatan asli daerah terus meningkat sebelum pandemi sehingga meningkatkan kemandirian daerah, di mana 50,65% penduduk yang didominasi generasi milenial dan Gen Z adalah potensi yang sangat penting dioptimalkan untuk menyambut era Society 5.0. Pemerintah Kota Malang tak henti-hentinya terus menata dan mempercantik wajah bumi Arema. Salah satunya penataan kayu tangan sebagai ibu kota heritage Malang Raya.
Here we are, a place for you to learn, find solutions, and develop knowledge and skills in business and management. We provide you with the methodology of case study prevalent in the academic and business world. So if you want to be fast, sharp, and relevant in business management, believe in yourself, believe in us, because now is your time.
Dengan inisiatif transisi energi, Pertamina menyediakan energi bersih ramah lingkungan untuk melindungi hijaunya bumi. Hangatnya sinar matahari, melimpahnya panas bumi, memenuhi kebutuhan energi dengan menekan emisi. Ayo bergerak bersama menjaga lestarinya alam demi masa depan bumi kita. Pertamina, energizing sustainable future, energizing you.
Di masa COVID-19 ini mengharuskan kita belajar daring dari rumah. Sehingga lumayan juga loh waktu yang terbuang begitu saja. Saya pikir, kenapa ya kita tuh nggak buat sesuatu gitu yang menghasilkan, kayak buat apa gitu. Nah, kebetulan saya sama Anissa ini kita sahabatan, jadi kita iseng-iseng lah cari ide. Pada akhirnya kita memutuskan untuk jualan online. Setelah kita cari-cari ide, puter otak, akhirnya ketemu. Kayaknya produk ini boleh juga nih kalau kita jual. Nama produknya itu Duken Nazazi, alias dak kebab enak, lezat, dan bergizi. Seperti yang kita ketahui, biasanya kebab paling isinya daging ayam, daging sapi, atau kambing. Nah, setelah kita dapat ide, kayaknya boleh juga nih kita pakai daging bebek. Awalnya sih kita mulai dari sistem PO, jual ke teman, keluarga, tetangga, dan ya lumayan lah, sampai sekarang ini lumayan banyak pesanannya. Semoga usaha ini terus berkembang dan semakin lebih besar, walaupun kita bekerja sambil berkuliah. So, berawal dari passion, memulai hal yang kecil, dan untuk jadi lebih besar.
Cuma rebahan tapi bisa bikin perubahan. Waktunya mulai bisa apa aja dari satu aplikasi. Mulai adaptasi cara bayar baru.
Bisa kan pakai Kris, jadi mudah.
Mulai eksplorasi cara tarik tunai baru.
Ya bisa lah. Dengan mobile tunai, gak perlu ribet.
Mulai melihat potensi bisnis baru.
Bisa dong, transfer luar negeri cukup dari sini.
Yuk buka tabungan BNI, cukup selfie. Dan aktifkan BNI Mobile Banking. Mulai bisa apa aja sekarang.
Gak pakai nanti.
Kapan kita harus mulai? Mari tanyakan jam Mas Iqbal.
Tunggu hari baik.
1 Januari 2112.
Kali.
Berani mulai investasi sekarang.
Invest saham atau reksadana
Di satu aplikasi ajaib.
gampang buat yang baru berani mulai.
Aman lagi. Bisa meroket kapan aja. Yuk, saatnya berani mulai investasi saham.
Dan reksadana.
Ajaib, berani maju.
Cuma rebahan tapi bisa bikin perubahan. Waktunya mulai bisa apa aja dari satu aplikasi. Mulai adaptasi cara bayar baru.
Bisa kan pakai Kris, jadi mudah.
Mulai eksplorasi cara tarik tunai baru.
Ya bisa lah. Dengan mobile tunai, gak perlu ribet.
Mulai melihat potensi bisnis baru.
Bisa dong, transfer luar negeri cukup dari sini.
Yuk buka tabungan BNI, cukup selfie. Dan aktifkan BNI Mobile Banking. Mulai bisa apa aja sekarang.
Gak pakai nanti.
Ya udah selesai nih. Nenek nggak sengaja.
Hai Ibu, saatnya nih wujudkan rumah impian Anya. Lihat deh, ada program Wish for Home dari Sinar Maslen. Ini nih promo-promo Wish for Home periode terakhir. Mulai dari kafling, rumah, sampai apartemen. Yuk wujudkan rumah impian Anya.
Wish for home.
Kini tiba saatnya kita untuk belajar tatap muka terbatas, yang tentunya atas seizin orang tua. Dan proses pembelajaran yang dibagi menjadi dua, terbatas di kelas dan pembelajaran jarak jauh. Yuk, jangan lupa untuk selalu menjaga protokol kesehatan dengan menggunakan masker, mengecek suhu badan, dan mencuci tangan sebelum masuk kelas. Kombinasi pembelajaran berkualitas yang aman juga nyaman, bikin orang tua makin tenang.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the participants of the Indonesian Economic Outlook 2022 virtual conference. We are now on the final day of this virtual conference on the fourth day, Thursday, November 25th of November. And on this session, on the second session today, we're going to talk about the urgency of developing a national data center. This virtual conference has was started in 22 of November, and it's a fourth-day event spanning three sessions every day. The program is organized by BeritaSatu Media Holding in collaboration with Ajaib, the Malang Municipal Government, PT Pertamina Persero, PT Bank Rakyat Indonesia Persero, GTS International, and Antaraja. And on this auspicious occasion, my name is Cari Miller. I will be accompanying the Editor-in-Chief of BeritaSatu.com, Bapak Aditya Laksamana Yuda. Hello, Pak. I hope you are doing well. And to open this session, I will invite the Minister of State-Owned Enterprise, Bapak Erick Thohir, to give an opening remark. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Mr. Primus Dorimulu, Director of Reporting BeritaSatu Media Holding, the panelists, I see here Pak Ririk Adriansyah, CEO of Telkom, Pak Tirta Segara, and Pak Soni Rahmadi Purnomo. Ladies and gentlemen, the participants of this virtual conference, I would like to begin by thanking God for His blessing that had allowed us to attend the Indonesia Economy Outlook 2022 with its main theme of economic expansion year. And I hope that this has been a productive and fruitful discussion to get an optimistic outlook of 2022 from the lesson that we learned in 2021. One of the most important thing in this discussion of economic outlook is how to improve corporate governance with a data-based approach. And I'm going to speak about the state-owned enterprise governance. under the ministry. It is important to base our governance on data to create strategic decisions and policies for more efficient performance. And data management for state-owned enterprise is based on various legal standing, including the decision of Minister of SOE number 101 on 2002 on work plan preparation and SOE budgeting, and ministerial regulations number 18 on 2014 on data reporting and documentation of SOE. And the Minister of SOE will require financial data, performance audit, annual audit results, and other data, as well as human resources data, and then the profile of the SOE and other publications, assets, and other data. These data are evaluated every year from February until December. And the output of the data include a final work plan, audit results, and report of realizations in quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4, and final audit. And revision of a work plan constitutes a cycle of data that the Ministry of SOE continue to monitor and evaluate to create a consolidated report and of the portfolio using the management of information system that is modern now. It is necessary to do this because SOE asset collectively represents 55% of the Indonesia, and the revenues represent almost 15% of total GDP. And in the running of strategic operations, and because the SOEs also employ a large number of employees, and SOEs have interconnectedness in sectors that are based on industries. So reports from SOE start with cluster level, subcluster, when information packages from work plans and long-term plans are delivered by finance directors to the ministry as part of oversight. And the data is processed in report of business management and accounting consolidation. So the SOE ministry has developed an architecture for data management system that covers two functions, which are the digitalization of financial report, planning, and oversight. And the system has been developed for digital financial reporting with an output of aggregation of financial report, and a digital plan that incorporates the SOE's work plan and budget plans. And the thirdly, for digital monitoring that will monitor and evaluate the SOE's performance every quarter. The system consists of front-end dashboard with an analysis data and infrastructure with an eye on the data of the safety. We have to set the access management according to the relevant ministry regulation. This is part of the system that we have set up to oversee the SOEs with a data-based approach. So this is a brief overview of the system that has been set up in the Ministry of SOE to improve the digital governance, corporate governance of SOEs. So I hope that this system will continue to be developed and to work on an optimum level. And I hope that the panelists can touch on this issue in their discussion during this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Susianto, Secretary of the Ministry of State-Owned Enterprise, for the opening speech this afternoon. And I would like to invite the panelists to take a group photo with Pak Susianto. I'm going to count down from here. Let's get ready now. 1, 2, 3. Once more, one more group photo. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And before we go on with the panel discussion, I would like to remind you that this afternoon's theme is the urgency for establishing of national data center. For the participants who have questions for any of the panelists this afternoon, you're welcome to write down your question in the Q&A section in your Zoom application, and we will submit your questions to the panelists during the Q&A session. Next, I would invite our moderator, Mr. Hari Gunarto, to moderate our discussion this afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen, the panelists, and also the participants. I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope today is a blessed and fruitful, productive day for you. And to speak to us today, we have Pak Ririk Adriansyah, CEO of PT Telkom Tbk, and Pak Tirta Segara, Education and Consumer Protection Commissioner of Financial Services Authority or OJK, and Sony Rahmadi Purnomo, CEO and founder of PT Global Success Solusi. We know that the digitalization in our livelihood had driven the need for the establishment of a data center for the data traffic. In the past 5 years, the growth in data centers has reached 270%. I would like to give the first opportunity to Pak Riri from Telkom to give his presentation about the transformation of Telkom data centers. We know that Telkom runs a number of data center businesses, including Telin and Mitratel that is going to be acquired. And what are your future strategies and roadmap for Telkom's data center line of business? Thank you, Pak Hari. I'd like to share with you what are the future of Telkom's data center. As Pak Hari said, data center, the need for data center continues to increase due to two things. The first one is digitalization. Many services are now dependent on digitalization. And secondly, because digitalization requires a more massive data exchange, and so companies that might in the past rely on small data centers in the past, now they might require greater capacity for their data to process their data, that is to respond to more flexibly respond to a surge in demand, to surge in activity. And especially in the past 2 years, the growth has been significant, especially in Indonesia. Many global companies are building data centers around Jakarta and also in various regions. So you can see at the bottom some players in the data centers business. So we have Telkom Sigma as our subsidiary. We also have some data centers in Singapore and other countries. And next, we plan to develop data center more in the future, and to build on the connectivity, the necessary connectivity, and to focus on the development of green data center, because some big companies require the use of green energy and more energy efficient infrastructure from tier 3 and to tier 4, and this field will become more competitive, even though the market is still growing. And even though the data centers will have to deal with a hyperscale of a huge amount of data being exchanged, maybe in the future with the development of 5G, there would be the trend would be for smaller data centers distributed over various geography, or a wide scale geography. This is relevant to the development of Indonesia 4.0, because Indonesia requires reliable infrastructure to draw in investment and to strengthen our human resource capability. We will need people with certain qualifications to run the data center. The rightmost panel shows that Indonesia shows one of the second most demand for data centers compared to India, but it's still the highest in ASEAN. Some telcos sell their data centers. They sell them because they need the fund to allocate to other regions. But there are also telcos that leverage this trend in data center by building data center business by acquiring from other companies. And this includes some operators that encourage the growth of data center business, and this include Telkom. This is the decision that we made because of two reasons. Because we want to unlock these data centers compared to telco, they have a bigger EBITDA between 25 to 35, and telco only have a multiply effect of 5 to 9 times. So if we have a data center business that we unlock, it will not only bring new revenues, but it will have multiply effects, multiplied value. So that's what telecom is going to do going forward in terms of data center. Next. Pak Hari said that in telecom, we run data center business in Telkom Sigma and Telin. So we are going to integrate this into a company that will that is Telkom Group's data center business unit, and we will unlock it. So what we will going to do is to run this parallel is by building data centers in Cikarang and add the capacity of our data centers in various locations across the country. Because we have space in our buildings that are rarely used now, so we are going to use that as our data center basis. And this is done to support 5G going forward. This is it is also possible that our data center business unit will go public eventually. So what are the challenges in winning the data center market? One is supporting infrastructure. Data center requires not only building and shelves, but also the most crucial support, which is power, stability of power supply. Because in tier 3, we need reliable power source. And we also need to secure an area that is not earthquake prone or not prone to other kinds of natural disaster, but also strategic to facilitate interconnectivity between the users. So Kalimantan is one of the regions that we think is more safer in terms of national disaster. The other parts of Indonesia are located in the rings of fire, so it's more dangerous. So and another challenge is the use of green energy. Even though some of our energy sources are fossil fuel based and hydroelectric, and some power plant use geothermal. So we are looking to focus on prioritizing green energy for our data center. By developing data centers with solar panel, we might require more land. We have to acquire more land to install the solar panel, and this isn't possible at the moment in Cikarang, where land prices is very high. We also need the technology to improve the connectivity, and this isn't a cheap or technology. The key to a data center is interconnectivity, and even though we are a telco company, we have to make sure that the data center is neutral and agnostic, and it can even be used by our competitors. So we hope that going forward, these challenges can be addressed with the collaboration with other stakeholders. And in this way, we hope that Indonesia Telkom would become one of the major player in data centers in the country. So that's basically what Telkom is planning in terms of data center development going forward. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Riri. It was a very interesting presentation. There are some points that I would like to highlight. The first one is that data center is the key to the national infrastructure to create Indonesia 4.0. So demand for data center Indonesia by 2030 is almost 1,400 megawatt, which is second only to India. And due to Indonesian government vision for digital development, well, we have a question. You said that foreign investments are making there are foreign investors coming to Indonesia, like Alibaba and Amazon. So any of those investors have shown interest in working with Telkom to develop data center? We are not alone in preparing our digital platform. We are in partnership with some of these investors. And one of the these investors want not only coverage in Indonesia, but also in other countries. So that's why we need to build our capacity first to be able to partner with them. So that's why I said that data center requires not only building, but also interconnectivity and a reliable power source. But basically, we need to work with other stakeholders to make this possible so that we can be more attractive to other investors. For domestic players, do you think that we are competitive, Telkom in this case, are competitive enough compared to other players to meet domestic demand? I think we can safely say we are meeting this demand, but these foreign investors, these foreign players have greater capacity and they have the technology that other companies don't have. And in some cases, they have a greater selling point than domestic players. So our plan is to continue to develop our data centers so that we can keep up with the global competitors that are coming to Indonesia. So how many data centers Telkom have now, and how many are you planning to develop in the next 5 years, especially in global scale? We have about 50 megawatt in data centers, including in Singapore, and we are now building 3 campuses, each 25 megawatts, so there will be an additional 75 megawatt. And in the medium term, we are going to build in other locations as well, so that in about 5 years, we might have about 200 megawatt. So we will adjust it to our need and the dynamics of the market. So how much investment do you need for that? I don't have the exact figure, but it will require significant investor. In the medium and long term, you said that data centers have better EBITDA than the Telkom. In terms of valuation, yes. So in the future, how much what is the percentage of contribution to the telecom group? So we don't know yet, but I think it would be significant in terms of revenue contribution. It won't be the biggest, but in valuation, in terms of valuation, it will be quite significant. Our core business remains the telco industry. The data center is a natural development. And we have over 70 million telecom subscribers, and also the users of IndiHome and corporate users. So this data center will have a lot of potential users. We will be not only the biggest data centers, but we can also give better services. We also have the biggest network, so it is easier for us to develop to other parts of the country. So, Pak Riri, I understand that you have limited time to be with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and all the best for Telkom. Thank you, Pak Hari. I hope that this presentation will be useful for the participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Next, I will invite the next speaker, Mr. Tirta Segara, the Education and Consumer Protection Commissioner of Financial Service Authority, who will be talking about creating smart digital consumer. We know that digitalization of the digital market is growing very significantly. A lot of digital banks are being established, and conventional banks are optimizing their digital banking services, and there is a growth, significant growth of fintech, and that with a lot of illegal fintech that had caused a lot of victims and caused the government to issue a moratorium of it. So there is a concern about the use of private data by unscrupulous individuals or unscrupulous corporation. So what are your comments on this?
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to greet Pak Riri Adriansa, Pak Susianto, Pak Soni Rahmadi. Thank you for this opportunity. Here, allow me to convey that the digitalization of product is no longer an option, but it is inevitable. It's no longer an option, it's a necessity. Otherwise, that particular industry will not be competitive. Now here, I would like to convey that financial literacy, including digital literacy, in Indonesia is still relatively low. Now, from our survey, only 38%, and this survey was in 2019. Now, this is lower than the inclusive rate, 37%. So when you purchase the financial product, sometimes they don't understand what they're buying. And the same with digital literacy. So here, if they purchase digital products, sometimes they don't understand what they're buying. And here, this is the survey regarding digital financial literacy. It's only 3.4 out of the scale 1.5. And then from OJK research, the literacy rate is low. For example, only 36% of the customer have product awareness. They know how to use the internet, online or other digital platform. And usually they use it to pay for their bills. regular bills. And then for online credit program, sometimes they do it without knowing clearly about the risks. And here, this is our mission, and in line with regulation in OJK, first is to protect the interests of consumer and society. Now, when we talk about protection, we have two approaches: preventive and curative. Preventive, we do it from education activities, and here regarding financial literacy and digital literacy. And once the consumer are educated, we give them warning, but still the consumer receive or experience loss, then they could use customer complaint or consumer complaint. And the consumer who are protected are not only lenders, but also the creditors and also the debtors. So both sides. We see that consumers need up-to-date data and information to be able to decide effectively. And if their digital literacy is low, then it would be difficult. They don't know how to make correct decision, and once they want to seek information, they don't know what sort of information that suits them. So here, unconsciously, they also share their private data. For example, today I'm having a birthday and I share this in Instagram, and then the people note it down. Pak Tirta, her birthday is on this date, and then they take photograph in front of their homes and other private data, so that people with unlawful intention could utilize that, could benefit from that information. Now here, we want to educate the public. And then next, I would like to emphasize how important it is to have national data center. And this also benefits the private sector, because the national data center will integrate and consolidate various data that currently being managed by different authorities, different associations separately. Now we could combine all of that, merge into one national data center. Now, all this time, OJK only covers the financial transaction, or what they call financial checking. But for fintech lending, the legal one, the legit one, they have Pusdafil, the lending data center. Now, this is managed by an association of fintech, Pusdafil. And then we also have different kind of data. The data that are required by future investors. They need the profile or the risk of the potential customer, so that they know once they want to lend money to them. So they will check the ID card, whether it is legal or not, or fake. And here, there are also other platforms to assess the accuracy and the credibility of the customer, whether they pay the tax accurately, do they pay other motor vehicle tax, or do they have the tax ID number. And once we have this national data center and could link data managed by various associations, it would be remarkable. And from the digital side, we also have consumer protection principle. This principle is to not spread, not to distribute confidential data. Now, for us, the financial institution, we need data for clear purposes, and we limit that. And for example, who could access it? Only certain people. and we only use camera, telephone location. Beyond that, we'll be violating the law. And then here, we also mention certain things that the confidentiality aspect, we uphold them. And then another information in OJK, here, we have learning management system. Now, this is literacy material that are interactive and informative, and it covers digital issues. And we have currently 9 modules, including financial technology or fintech. Now, the public could access this. And we will conduct telemarketing, socialization, and using other social media canal. So you could access this through our website, and we will launch it this December. And then my last slide are the challenges. So once we could access the data through National Data Center, the owner of this data could give the access based on reciprocal basis, meaning the one who received the data or one who submitted, or certain organization only, because consumer need to be represented by an association, because we cannot conduct oversight to each consumer. And then the digital talent. I agree, Indonesia is a remarkable country. We have competent human resources. And then third, data classification. We need to classify the data which are confidential, which are strategic. And then data security. And lastly, infrastructure development. So I guess that is all, Pak Gun. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you. I noted down several important points, that the consumer financial literacy is still very low, around 30%. The same with financial literacy. And then for financial literacy is around 3 out of scale 1 to 5. And then what often happens is that the public often misunderstood, and they share their confidential data without their knowing the danger of doing it. And here you also mention that regarding the National Data Center, it would be remarkable if we could consolidate different data managed by different organizations. And then you also have a digital learning system, or the media learning system in OJK website. Now, I realize you cannot conduct supervision to all consumers. Now, how can you develop an oversight system? Yes, we have IT-based supervisory system to assist us with oversight, so they don't have to come to our office. We have an online platform now, and we don't have to take the data, but once the financial institution update the data, it will go directly to our database. So we save a lot of time by doing this, and we save a lot of time in processing the data. So with the system, we could spend our time to analyze and to make decisions. And then, from the IT point of view, we have developed supervisory technology. This is an oversight system using digital system. So in game, it's like plug and play, so that we could immediately have diagnostic, just like when we bring our car to the auto shop. We know exactly what's wrong once they analyze it. Now, with digitalization, we realize every day is improving, but it doesn't mean that we need to reduce the number of human resources. No, but it speed up the time spent by our human resources so that they could spend more time to analyze things. Oh yes, wonderful. But one more thing. You have a task force, Waspada Investasi. And the task force mentioned there's a lot of illegal and there's server located overseas. Now, how can OJK overcome this barrier? Because this is related with consumer protection. Yes, first I need to underline this, that consumer, of course, we want to protect them. But for illegal credit services or credit agency, it is difficult because the institution don't have the exact residence or address. So when the consumer complain, we have difficulty trying to track them, to locate them. And yes, you're right, not all of their servers located in Indonesia. Some of their servers we found out located in Hong Kong, Vietnam, Singapore, China. So not all of the servers located here in Indonesia, and it's difficult for us. And here we receive a lot of assistance from the Ministry of Communication and Information, and we have a close collaboration with them. Once we report it to them, and the Ministry of Communication immediately shut it down. And here we encourage the public or consumer here, please do not deal with illegal investment platform because it is difficult to trace their residency. So, and they oftentimes, if they get trapped with this illegal lending facilities, they will use muscle man, and it's difficult for the consumer if they want to report to the police. And actually, there are a lot of legal or legitimate credit or lenders agency, because in order to become our member, they must follow the code of conduct stipulated by us. Thank you. Well, I imagine there will be a lot of questions from the floor. And before that, I would like to invite Pak Sony. Now, this is at first, this is a small company started in Jogja, and it is one of the incubator company from Telkom. And you succeeded in IPO last August or September. And what about the prospect of global success, Lucy, and also regarding the data center? Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much, Pak Tirta, Pak Ririk, and Pak Hari. So here, I would like to share my presentation regarding the data center, why it is important. Here in RAN system, this is an application that we developed back in 2014. So we started this and we acted as one of the agents to help digital transformation in Indonesia. And why we need data center? Well, from our perspective, we think that we need to have an infrastructure to merge all the different data. So what we experienced in the past, as conveyed by previous speaker, from here we have various data managed by different government agencies. And here the data that relating with various industries. There's a lot of data, and not to mention data about their resources. All of those data oftentimes are inaccurate. So, and oftentimes we found duplication of data or redundancy. So when we want to integrate the data, link them, those inaccurate data creates a severe headache, you could say. So this is a barrier that we face. And you mentioned about the data center or the infrastructure to make it happen. Now, I know it's not familiar yet. And here, next, please. Now, what we are doing later on, we try to integrate those data. So originated the data from one company, and we try to focus to integrate those data regarding productivity in a particular industry. And now our main product is ERT. We integrate all the business process from upstream, downstream, the distribution data, the whole shebang. And then after that, we receive confidence from many other companies. We were entrusted to manage their data as well. And even the state-owned enterprises asked me to manage those data. And what's interesting, we also found inaccurate data, sometimes concerning material and asset data. For example, the data in procurement is different from the data noted down, recorded in the liability or asset, or data concerning particular vendors are often redundancy, duplicated. In other words, there's a lot of inefficiency there. Now, 2019, we tried to manage this, but then the pandemic started. Now, before that, if there is inefficiency, 1 or 2%, then we could close our eyes. But when the pandemic started, 0.05% inefficiency cost a lot when the pandemic started. So that's what triggered many companies to transform digitally. One of the reasons is to increase productivity. And because everything must be integrated, and it would be sufficient for us to use one data. Now that's basically what we're doing in Run System. We try to provide a solution for various industries in Indonesia so that they could increase their productivity. And then I mentioned that in 2019, we see there's an increasing need to do this, especially when the pandemic started. And last year, we had this pandemic until today. So 3 months seems a long time, and we have this pandemic for almost 2 years. And we monitored that how the people behavior in their daily life and in the behavior in engaging in industry have changed. The way they work, the way they feed the data into the data center and other activities. In the past, the mindset is that you keep the data yourself. You must not put it in the cloud. You must not share it with other division. But COVID-19 changes all that. So there is a need for a reliable data center. And here, I'm not saying that an increasing demand, but there's a change of mindset. And we feel that in years to come, there will be an increased awareness of this still. And here, it's what we're doing. Last year, we did what we can to increase the productivity. We integrate the business process within that company internally. And if Pak Tirta linked this, the data between different agencies, now what we did is to integrate those various data internally first, and then between agency, between business entities. So, for example, if we have activities in Java Island, we could do that and maybe compare the data in Sumatra or other province. Now, this could be, in a simple sense, this could be compared with the data obtained by BPS without them having to conduct census or survey. And then run system in the past, very focused on industry. But starting last year, we integrate our work to more than 10,000 SMEs. We integrate the data from over 10,000 SMEs to our run system, to a larger sector. The purpose of doing this is to make things more efficient. Now, in the past, our founding fathers unite this wide nation with language. And now, basically what we're doing, we want to do the same with different version. We want to unite all different region with one data. So here, we want to support this with a robust data center, a robust infrastructure. And I think it is possible to make it come true. I guess that is all from my side. Thank you. God blessings be upon us all. Thank you, Pak Sony. So it turns out that Pak Sony's work is synchronizing various data, and you often experience headache because, as you mentioned earlier, there are data scattered all over the place from different industries, and there are often redundancy, data duplication, and we desperately need application to unite those data. Now, in the past, the synchronization caused inefficiency. And in the past, because they have still high profit margin, they don't care about it. But now it cannot be tolerated anymore. Now, my question, why is it so difficult to integrate all those data between agencies, between entities? Now, in the past, if we want to make online ID card, we had that project, and then have one card for everything, one card put together where we know our billing statement for water, electricity bills, and tax. Now, what prevents that? Yes, well, thank you. I would like to narrow it down and use one illustration in one company. One company have different department, and each department have different data. And you can imagine this is from one company, inside one company. And usually, because this different division, they don't know what benefits they could have if they integrate the data. And when we want to integrate various data, and Sometimes we are caught up in technical things. Whereas if we look back, we could do those things relatively easier than we thought. For example, we could integrate the data without extracting the data, but we push it. We forward that system to OJK so that the monitoring system could be easier. And I'm very confident that we could do this. Now, in the past, the asset data in state-owned enterprise in the past is different from now. In the past, maybe you have not re-evaluate the data. Could be the asset back in the 1970s, but now it's different, even though the asset remained the same. And then second, the barriers regarding infrastructure. So here, we are very fortunate that PT Telkom Indonesia and others conducted a massive infrastructure development, because in the past, the data was stored individually, separately. Now, can you imagine that the data from one neighborhood is kept in that neighborhood? It's not integrated, and there are thousands of neighborhoods. Now, once you want to integrate that, it is possible to do it. Now, like some of the experience in the past, we have double ID card, maybe triple or quadruple ID card in the past, because the data is not validated through the overall data and it's not synchronized with the old data from our ID, the old ID card, because we cannot validate the data. There's no way of validating those data. So if we want to update the data, it's almost impossible to do so in the past. All right. So maybe it was intentional. So if they don't have accurate data, they could play around with that. Well, I don't see it that way. I don't think it's intentional. But now we have a massive infrastructure, massive data center and fiber optic. Now we could do that easily. But 10 years ago, it's still difficult. And we cannot say that the infrastructure of data center, the internet and everything is the same. Everything in Java is the same in other provinces. So, because I just arrived in Medan, in a public area, and I can imagine 10 years ago, if I arrived here, it is difficult for me to obtain the data, and the condition definitely differs now and then. And it's very difficult if we want to update the data. I see. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure there are certain questions coming in from the floor, and now I would like to give the floor to MC. Yes, we have several questions.
I think most of the questions are directed to Pak Sony. One question from Eko Angga Suparno. He has two questions, and I'm going to ask them one by one. The first question, how could we build interinstitutional collaboration so that the government can cut the massive costs for data centers, especially since the government has a huge debt relating to COVID-19 mitigation, and the government has other priorities apart from building data centers. The government in this case have considered ways to coordinate various ministries and institutions pre-pandemic. The pandemic had an impact not only on the private sector, but also on the government. So if any inefficiency would have a different impact in the past and now, the Ministry of Finance, we know that the Ministry of Finance often complained about how government institutions run their operates, but now I think they complain even more. So in this case, I think we need to coordinate, because otherwise we would not have a common standard, because everyone will have different interests and different objective. So I think I think the government has already thought about this, but in Indonesia particularly, I don't think we need to wait for the government to do it. The culture for collaboration that we have now would be feasible for integration and accumulation of data. The fintech corporations, for example, had collaborated and worked together for to streamline the online loan application processes. And this also happened in other kinds of associations. So without having a single authority to orchestrate the whole process is probably challenging, because Satu Data, I've heard about Satu Data since years ago, but I'm aware of how challenging it is to consider to appoint one authority to declare this is the format that we're going to take, this is the system that we're going to use. Okay, another question from Pa Angga is, once data center is established and is operating as planned, as intended, will it open job opportunities for digital talents in Indonesia to basically to operate the cloud services? We welcome. We realize that anyone who has control over data holds the power, and I believe that the data is a power. RAN system seeks to be provider of data for data centers. So there is a big need to go cloud, but then what? Because once we have the data available, then we might need the facilities to manage, control, and analyze the data. I still remember a lesson that my child had at school about how to control and how to predict something. So once data is collected and accumulated on an integrated platform, a platform that integrated data from various institutions. So the idea is we will need digital talent to use this valuable data to analyze, to provide new services. But going forward, our challenge is to first integrate this data, because without it, it is difficult to analyze the data and come up with products and services about prediction and what can be gained from the data by the users, by what the users can gain from the data. So of course there is a big opportunity for young digital talents for the data center. Pak Tirta, we have a question for you. So this is a question from Aurel Isaura, and she wants to ask Pak Tirta Segara. And this is still related to what Pak Sony said earlier. once we have a lot more digital talent and they are qualified and skilled, and there is less risk of them abusing their skills, how can you make sure that the client data is protected? Is OJK collaborating with other institutions on issues relating to protection of client data? Digital talent grows as fast as the growth of the industry. In OJK, we continue to learn, we continue to catch up with the technology, and we recruit digital talents with extraordinary talents. In our organization, it's rather difficult. My institution has been very slow in digitalization, so we need to recruit young talents in this case. In terms of safety, for finance institutions, security is something that you cannot compromise about. It's number one concern. So we need to keep up with the latest security updates, including in financial service institutions. We continue to evaluate their safety measures, and when we notice something on social media about something that happened in a financial service, what sort of data had been leaked, we looked into it. So private data should not be distributed, and only 3 can be accessed by any application: camera, and location, and number. So this is something that we continue to monitor in financial services. And in terms of OJK data center, we work together with Telkom, and our data, we use Telkom Sigma for our data center. We are now preparing a data center in Surabaya, because OJK is a relatively young institution. We are only about 10 years old. So our data center has been, we have a data center, but we share its location with other institutions, and we're building our own. And PT Telkom is assisting us in building it with their Telkom Sigma. So it will take time for OJK to train our own digital talents. So we rely on Telkom to lend us their talents, because protection of data is a very important issue for us. So thank you, Pak Tirta. So once again, data security is not to be compromised, as Pak Tirta had emphasized. So maybe before we end this session, maybe Pak Tirta and Pak Soni can share with us your closing statements. Maybe we can begin with Pak Tirta. So thank you, Pak Hari and Pak Cakri, for BeritaSatu. I think this is a very important event. I've already said that our digital literacy is relatively low. So it is necessary for consumers to learn not only the benefit but the risk of financial services. So we need to learn the benefit and the risk, and also our obligations as consumers. So we're not supposed to share our private data. And from now on, let's try not to share our private data. Be careful about sharing our information over social media. Check the accuracy of every phone call, because a lot of fraud that was reported to OJK are cases where the caller claimed to have been from the financial service or company, or consumer center, and OJK had a phone number where you can check the number any number that call you 157. So you can also call 081 157 157 157, so you can learn about the authenticity of the caller that call you about something pertaining finances. And from me, the challenges going forward, the future challenges for us is to create efficient and integrated data system for Indonesia. So data center is a milestone in that direction and to realize this milestone and to have the single data center for integrated data for Indonesia. We believe that collaboration among stakeholders is crucial, and we need to continue to work on that. So existing collaboration has to be increased from the number of stakeholders involved and the quality of this collaboration. We don't need more than political will, but also the willingness to collaborate and to use the result of that collaboration. We will continue to focus on becoming the agent for digital literacy to feed as much data in data centers provided by the Indonesian industries. Issues such as security and the huge number of data. And these factors can somehow be accommodated in the data center idea that we have talked about. So back to you, Cakri. Thank you, Pak Gun, for exploring the question and answers. Unfortunately, Pak Riri had to leave earlier. I would like to thank Pak Riri from Pak Telkom TBK, and to Pak Tirta, Education and Consumer Protection Commissioner of Financial Service Authority of OJK, and also to Sony Rahmadi Purnomo, CEO and founder of PT Global Success Solution TBK. I hope your company will continue to run faster and will continue to train more digital talents. Thank you again to all the participants this afternoon. And Cakri, and I'm going to end this virtual conference session on Indonesia Economic Outlook 2022 by thanking our sponsors for this session, Ajaib, Ternak Duit, Bintang Saham Indonesia, Indonesia Capital Market Festival, and Kuliah Saham for supporting today's session. See you again in the third session, where we are going to talk about digital economic expansion, where we will be hearing from Cari, Deputy Minister of Trade, Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Anderson Sumarli, CEO of Ajaib Group, Bapak Suyanto Chung, CEO of Antaraja, Mr. Mart Polman, CEO of lamudi.co.id, Mr. Abdullah Abu Bakar, Mayor of Kediri, and Ibu Tessa Wijaya, co-founder and COO of Sendit. Thank you, and see you again in the next session.